As a fairly new farmer, we're always trying to figure out ways to make an organic farm work. And one of the ways that we have found to do that is using spent grain from our brewery as a food source for our animals. This is an excellent way to get high protein, delicious food for your animals at zero cost. So let's go check out what we're doing so you can have the tips and tricks that we learned so you don't have to make the mistakes that we did along the way. It's becoming pretty standard practice to have breweries use their grain to go to farms and use it as a feed product instead of having it be waste. And as we know, food going into the landfill is one of the most detrimental things to our environment. We really, really want to help these small breweries that maybe don't have farms to send it to, that are putting it into the landfill, to find a way to your farm. And if you don't know what spent grain is, what it is the grain that we make beer out of. We boil it in the mash, and all the sugars go into the beer to make alcohol. But what's left is the fiber and the protein, which is actually awesome for the animals. If you can find a small brewery and help them divert that waste, you're doing something great for the environment and something great for your pocketbook, because it does save so much money. So let's look at what we're doing around spent grain. This is a 55-gallon drum of spent grain from the brewery. However many of these you're gonna need, you want double. So if a brewery that you partner with is gonna fill 6 of these a week, you wanna have 12, so you can have 6 clean to drop off when you pick up your 6 with the spent grain in it. When we first started doing this, we'd bring the grain back to the farm and it would be disgusting in 2 days. It would have maggots in it. Now, because we've changed some of our practices, this is days or maybe even weeks old, and it still smells completely delicious. It has no bad smell to it. There's no maggots in it. There's nothing bad, and the animals can continue to eat it. So the changes that we made were not bringing the grain in totes that were cut on the top. They were not sealable, and so there was no way to keep the flies from laying the maggots inside of it. So we have these with the seal-fitting lid, and they have this clip that can go on it. They're sealed. The second thing that we changed is we started putting EM1s, or effective microorganisms, in them. And I thought of this because if you know what bokashi is a specific kind of compost. It's part of Korean natural farming. They often make bokashi out of spent grain. So my thought was, oh, well, if they can make bokashi out of spent grain in a sealed container, then we can stop it from going bad and we can keep it food grade for the animals for many, many more days. We bought the EM1s and we were putting like a 1/4 cup to a cup in a 55-gallon drum like this as soon as it's room temperature. So we give it to the brewery and they put it in when it's coming out of the mash tank and as soon as it cools down to room temperature. Now, if they're not comfortable doing that, you wanna have your driver, whoever's picking it up, have it in their car, and they literally just pour it in as soon as they get it. The faster that it gets in there, the more you're controlling the microbial activity to go in the direction that you want. You're going to have a healthy biome for the gut of your animals, a healthy biome for the soil. Now, we have started making our own EM1s, and it's pretty simple. We have a 55-gallon drum like we have for the grain. We have an aerator like you would use for fish tank. The first time you're gonna wanna fill it with water, and you're gonna wanna make sure there's no chlorine in the water, and then you're gonna add in your EM1s, and then you're gonna add in organic molasses. We just continue to make our own EM1s, and we no longer need to buy it. We also use this for fertilizer. We feed it to the trees. We do foliar sprays with it. So if you ever have like rat pee, cat pee in a barn somewhere, this is awesome to spray. It'll kill the smell. So effective microorganisms can be used in so many different ways. And essentially what you're making here is bokashi. If we kept this sealed for 21 days and let it ferment with the EM1s, essentially this would be bokashi. And this would be basically a shelf-stable food, and it would also be a shelf-stable fertilizer. By doing this, we can have this last for weeks and not go bad. Our other animals are eating it, and it's giving them super good microbiome in their guts. And that microbiome is being pooped out into our compost through the GI tract of the animal. In short, this is how you can have grain coming to your farm the whole time. It's really simple, and it can save you thousands and thousands of dollars a year. It is a free resource for your farm, and that money that you spend on the barrels and on a small truck with a lift gate will be paid back in just a couple of months. Hey. Don't be jealous. Don't be jealous. Anytime you're switching cow, a sheep, a goat's diet, you have to be really careful. You could get frothy bloat when you go from dry hay to green grass. You can get grain overload when you go from dry hay or green grass to grain. When you're giving the spent grain to your animals, you really need to give them time for their digestive systems to get used to it. You give them a little bit, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then you transition out whatever the hay is that they're eating. You can transition less. We still feed hay and grain because there'd be no circumstances that animals in the wild would just be eating grain. Grain is something that's at the top of the grass shaft. Animals eat grain in conjunction with grass. We've lost a goat to changing their diet, and we've lost a couple of sheep fairly recently. And even if you're doing silage, if you have first cut silage, second cut silage, third cut silage, when you get to the last 10 feet of second cut silage, you should take some kind of bucket tractor and put it on top of the third cut silage and mix it together. You want to make sure that whatever they've been eating is the majority, and then you little by little by little by little switch it over to the new thing so that their belly, or bellies in a lot of ruminant animals, is able to get adjusted. These are the cows. They get spent grain every day. They also get greens. This is lettuce that started to go to flour, and so we can no longer sell it. I mean, I'll still eat it. They get fresh greens, they get hay, and they get spent grain every day. People always call like, hey, what do you do with your wasted food? And I'm like, no, we don't have any waste here on the farm. This lettuce is actually delicious. So when the grain comes from the brewery, we drop it off at all the different animal yards that we have. This is a 10-acre orchard that we're using chickens as weed control for about 8 months of the year, and then we take them out before harvest. We are going to go inside here and see how they like eating the grain. As you can see, our chickens love the spent grain. They're just waiting in anticipation, and they've already been fed this morning, so it's not like they're starving. They just love it. Oh, get out of there. So let's go put this in their trough over here. Here on the ground, you can see a lot of the grain is being kicked out of their trough, and that's okay because it's essentially fertilizer for all of the trees. Because we're using the bokashi method, we're inoculating with the EM1s. It's very obvious if you look around that the chickens love the spent grain, but also we have guinea hens, and we have turkeys, and we have ducks. It's really a winner with everybody. Not winner, winner, we're eating a chicken for dinner, but winner, winner, spent grain is the best chicken dinner. I'm so grateful that we have the restaurants and we're able to keep the food in the loop, whether that means the food coming back to the farm as compost or it means the food going as feed to my animals and turning into fertilizer for the ground. Hey, can we just be in my video? That about wraps it up. I'm so glad that you got to check this video out and you got to see a little slice of what we're doing here on Engelhart Farm with the spent grain. Comment, like, subscribe. Please let me know things you want to see videos about. We want to make the videos that you want to see here on the farm. You're also always welcome to come and volunteer on the farm and check out what we're doing in person. Thank you for watching. Bye now.